This week on Waterways, the beach in your health, and Biscayne birding trail. A scene at most likely any beach includes children playing in the sand, folks walking barefoot in the surf, a family enjoying a picnic, couples sipping beverages and having fun, friends dunking each other underwater, or maybe throwing a bit of seaweed around. All seemingly harmless activities, but there's a bit of a catch.
There's all kinds of bacteria that live in beaches, in the sand, on the seaweed and the rack that's on the sand, and in the water. And most of these are perfectly harmless and they're normal bacteria. We're surrounded by bacteria in our daily life. They're everywhere, they're on our skins. We are ourselves a walking ecosystem. But the beach is one place that you can encounter disease-causing organisms, what we call pathogens.
The United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, has conducted epidemiological studies examining the relationship between illnesses and exposure to pathogens at swimming beaches. These studies have resulted in a series of recommendations for state governments to establish recreational water quality standards to help keep the swimming public safe. There are also several things that individuals can do to decrease their risk of exposure to these pathogens.
Most of the beaches around the country that have been tested in these epidemiological studies have found that there is an increased risk in reported illness from people who are exposed to water. So that is a real factor, but it needs to be offset by the benefits of going into the water too. So what we're suggesting is you can still go swimming, but recognize that there's a risk, but there are certain things that you can do to better protect yourself and to minimize that risk.
To further examine this risk, a beach in Miami was selected where tests could be conducted and samples analyzed. The chosen site? Hobie Beach, just across the street from Chris's office, NOAA's Atlantic Oceanographic and Meteorological Laboratory, also called AOML. A dream team of doctors, scientists, and engineers collaborated on the study, led by the Oceans and Human Health Center at the University of Miami and aided by NOAA and other universities from around Florida. Along with Oceans and Human Health Center Director Laura Fleming and project leader Helena Solo-Gabriel, the team included Dr. Maribeth Gidley, an osteopathic physician specializing in family medicine and environmental public health, and Dr. Lisa Plano, a pediatrician and expert in viruses and infectious disease. Was the beach that Chris and Maribeth drove past every day on their way to work polluted? Did it contain contaminants harmful to human health? Did exposure to water at such beaches increase bathers' risk of illness? The Beaches Epidemiology Study at Hobie Beach aimed to definitively answer those questions. The acronym BEACHES stands for Beach Environmental Assessment and Characterization Human Exposure Study.
We had over 1,300 people complete the study. Then they were divided randomly into two different groups. One group was assigned to basically just sit on the shore. They had a lot of fun. They just hung out and read magazines and dug their toes into the sand. The other group was assigned to go into the water. Each participant had a bottle that they took out with them so they could sample their own personal space. And then at predetermined times, we had somebody call out to them that they were to dunk their head and face completely under the water to represent a bather that might be swimming and getting their head underwater. And then at a certain time, they were also instructed to fill their bottle with water.
In total, these swimmers spent 15 minutes in the water recreating a typical Saturday afternoon dip in the ocean. The water samples collected by the swimmers were processed at AOML as well as the University of Miami, water samples further away from the shoreline at Hobie Beach were also collected to be used as control samples.
The people that participated in this beaches epidemiology study, they took a questionnaire before they went into the water to determine what their health status was at that time, and then there was a follow-up within a few weeks after the study where they were called and asked to report any symptoms, any illness, any things like that. And basically what was found was a statistical relationship between the people who reported illness and the people who had gone into the water.
The data also revealed increased levels of Enterococcus, a bacteria found in the human digestive tract. Unlike a pool, which is chlorinated, oceans have no chemicals to kill dangerous organisms or to prevent people from spreading bacteria to one another. Beaches are not chemically treated either. The viruses and pathogens that lurk in the sands and marine waters break down gradually, giving them time to spread and find new hosts.
So what we found were that the people that were randomized to go into the water and not stay on the beach were much more likely to report an illness. And the illnesses that we were asking them about were gastrointestinal illnesses, were skin illnesses, were ear illnesses.
There are some areas of the sandy beach that pose a higher risk than others. Bacteria accumulate in the largest numbers at the high tide line above water's edge. Incidentally, also the place where most beachgoers walk.
So if you think about where the seaweed rack all accumulates, right there, just above there where the normal high tide line is, that's where you get the greatest concentrations of bacteria and sand. The area in the water that's got the greatest exposure is that swash zone, that near shore water that's in like knee to ankle deep. That's usually where you see the highest concentrations of bacteria as well. So in the past, we've seen people cooking in hibachis right in the surf zone. It's probably not the best place to set up your meal.
Besides limiting your exposure to the high tide line and swash zone, it is also wise to steer clear of the nearshore waters at least an hour or two after it rains. That gives the stormwater time to flush through the system and dissipate into the ocean. Stormwater is often carrying silt and debris with it, including animal waste and a variety of bacteria that may include pathogens. It is also a good idea to get rid of some of the bacteria on your skin by showering before entering the water.
Many people will shower off after they get out of the water. You want to get the salt and everything off, but they don't really think about bacteria and they don't really think about showering before they go in the water. But most recreational pools have rules that you have to shower beforehand, and one of the things that does is it removes the casual load of bacteria off the surface of your skin and reduces it. So just like when you're going swimming in a pool, if you're going to go swimming out at the beach, it's healthy and it's also nice for your neighbors to shower off before you go into the water, and then for your own safety to shower off when you come back out of the water.
Then, when someone is in the water, we advise them to try and swallow as little water as possible. This can also involve trying to limit the number of times that they dunk their head underwater, or in the case of horseplay, advising children especially not to push other people under the water if they're not prepared.
If you had an open wound, you shouldn't put dirt in it. And sand is not clean. And we know people are walking across these beaches. We know people take their animals to this beach. So we know, even though the sun shines on it and the water is beautiful, it's not as clean as it actually looks. Nothing ever is.
The number one rule for staying healthy at the beach is to wash your hands after playing in the sand or in the surf. Pay attention to where you are at the beach and where hotspots for bacteria contamination might be, like the high tide line, the swash zone, and the seaweed. Shower, wash your hands, and avoid eating or preparing food in those hotspots. Alcohol-based hand sanitizers are also very good at killing bacteria on your skin. and are easy to carry in your beach kit. It's also best to avoid large crowds of people congregated in the water, and if you are sick, then help everyone else by not going in the water. After analyzing the data from the Hobie Beach study, though Chris and his team had answered the questions of what was present in the Hobie Beach environment, the study stopped short of tracing the exact source of the pollution. But Chris had his suspicions. Whenever it rained, there was substantial urban stormwater runoff across the beach, and this runoff could carry high levels of bacterial contamination. The beach also had large populations of birds during some seasons, especially pigeons and seagulls, and it was also a dog beach where cleanup of pet feces was not enforced. In addition, the nearshore waters of this particular beach did not have good circulation, so it took several hours for the runoff water to flush out to sea.
At the time this study was done, there was no real limit to the access to the beach. There were no parking spots or really roads going down to the beach. It was a highly urbanized beach, and the population parked their cars right on the sand, right at the water. It was a dog beach. They could take dogs there. There were other animals there. They would be packed in at very high density right at the water's edge, especially on holidays. There were lots of people right in the water. There were these natural drainage canals so that when it rained, the rain would run across the beach, down these little drainage ditches, coat the beach, and this was basically urban stormwater runoff that would periodically coat the beach.
In the time since the Hobie Beach study was concluded, the city of Miami has successfully implemented simple improvements that have reduced pollution in the waters and on the beach. A parking lot was installed with proper drainage. Picnic areas were established, which resulted in fewer people preparing food or eating in the hotspot zones in the sand. A better quality of sand was imported, which had lower microbial counts, and the city increased beach grooming efforts. In addition, a campaign was initiated to encourage people to clean up after their dogs. This renovation has resulted in a beautiful, scenic beach with better access, which is now much cleaner and safer than it used to be. This type of beach renovation effort, when coupled with public education and better public hygiene practices, can help to maximize the potential health benefits of beachgoing while reducing the potential risks.
The thing that I would like the viewers to take away from this show is that the benefits of going to the beach far outweigh the risks of going to the beach if you use your common sense and don't expose yourself to things that you know might hurt you.
For more information on a variety of issues associated with both the benefits and potential risks for beachgoers, visit http://water.epa.gov. See you safely at the beach. Many people pause and take in the moment when witnessing a sunset, connecting to the natural world around them, but that moment can be as fleeting as the sinking sun. Some people feel inspiration and awe when they happen upon a deer or a dolphin, but these chance meetings are rare. What isn't so rare is the myriad of bird species that live, breed, and traverse across our landscape in South Florida. And a growing number of residents are beginning to take notice, discovering the benefits of bird watching.
Modern American life can be really stressful, especially if you're working in a city, in an office, and have long commutes. And escaping to nature and watching the lives of the birds can be a real escape from that.
Elsa Alvear is Chief of Resource Management at Biscayne National Park, where since 2006 has managed the park's natural and cultural resources. Elsa is also an avid birder.
When I heard that there was a city in Tennessee called Kingsport, Tennessee, that had started a city birding trail and certificate earning program, it occurred to me, hey, there's 32 national parks and we don't have birding trails, so I think we should start one. And so because I work in Biscayne National Park, I thought this is where we'll start one. And I proposed the idea to my superintendent, and he was very enthusiastic about the idea. I approached the Tropical Audubon Society, which is our local chapter of the National Audubon Society, and I pitched it.
Within 5 months of having the idea, the Biscayne Birding Trail was created and implemented through a partnership between Biscayne National Park and the Tropical Audubon Society. The birding trail highlights a series of locations within Biscayne National Park where people can see some 200 different species of birds throughout the year.
Well, I think it's a way to promote Biscayne National Park. A lot of people come to visit South Florida and don't even realize that Biscayne is a national park. They may be out there on their boat, but there isn't signage or anything to promote it. So one of the ways we're doing it is to try to get people to go on a treasure hunt, if you will, and get out there and find the species of birds that are there.
The idea for the Biscayne Birding Trail also included offering ways to earn levels of certification, reflecting the number of different species the participant is able to identify over their lifetime within park boundaries. The more species checked off your list, the higher the level of certification. The first level of certification is the beginner level and honors the double-crested cormorant, which is considered to be the most easily observed bird in Biscayne National Park. To achieve the beginner level certification, the participant must observe 30 different species of birds.
It took me, I think, about a month to get my first, and then the more birds you get, the more levels you get. So it's not something like you can get to the top level right away. It's going to take time, because some birds are show up seasonally, some birds are here year-round, so it's going to be a mix.
The second level in the Biscayne Birding Trail is achieved when the birder identifies 60 different species within park boundaries. The honorary royal tern appears on the certificate. With 90 species identified, the birder gets the brown booby certificate. And with the highest level of certification, the expert level, the certificate is adorned with the beloved mangrove cuckoo.
This program is to make it a competition. You get certificates. It's a really fun way to spend an afternoon. And we find that it's really getting young people involved in birding too.
We're at the tip of the Convoy Point jetty. So there's a boardwalk that comes over, and then there's this fill part with these boulders. And the neat part about this jetty is it almost feels like you're standing in the middle of Biscayne Bay, someplace that you'd normally need to take a boat to. The park is over 90% water, and sometimes it can be hard to access these areas without a private boat. But by walking out here on the jetty, you can get a little bit closer to the birds.
Ruddy turnstones, terns, sanderlings. These shorebirds can often be seen at this jetty. Woodpeckers, cardinals, and hawks. These are birds you can see on the main park road.
This is the main park road, and as you're driving into Biscayne National Park, you can sometimes see some really incredible birds that you would not see in your backyard. Just a few minutes ago, we had behind me a yellow-crowned night heron.
And although Biscayne National Park is 90% water, visitors can even enjoy birding from the parking lot.
The parking lot is filled with tropical hardwood hammock trees. So the juxtaposition of the tropical hardwood hammock trees next to the mangroves and the water areas give you what's called the edge effect, which is where one habitat matches up with another, and you result with the highest density of bird species that way. We just get an incredible variety of birds here, everything from mangrove cuckoos to black-throated blue warblers. It's really fun birding in the parking lot, and you wouldn't think a parking lot, but yet this is one of the most productive areas that we have here at the park.
With access to a boat, birders can visit Elliott and Boca Chica Keys. which are both part of the Biscayne birding trail. Herons, ibis, pelicans, frigates. The list grows quickly.
We start to get concentrations of birds in the fall going south and in the spring going north back up to the breeding grounds. And that's where you see a really high diversity of land birds and water birds in Biscayne National Park. And you'll see all the species of warblers that you would expect to see in Florida would pass through here. And it's a very exciting time to bird.
In the fall, as the days start to get shorter and colder and food sources dwindle, birds seek wintering grounds in the southern hemisphere. Biscayne National Park is located along the Atlantic Flyway. Birds that follow the eastern coastline get funneled right over Biscayne National Park. In the spring, the reverse happens, which is why Biscayne National Park reigns high among favorite birding spots for avid birders. The habitat provided by the designation of Biscayne National Park is an obvious benefit to sustaining migrating birds on their journey.
One of the reasons why we're encouraging people to turn in their bird list to the park and to earn their certificates is because we really want to know what they saw in any particular year and over the course of their lifetime.
When birders report their lists, they become citizen scientists and contribute to the pool of data regarding population health and thus overall ecosystem health. When species lists and bird sighting records are compiled, the results give resource managers indications of trends and real-time reporting of anomalies or problems. The National Audubon Society has tracked this data for the last 100 years.
And it's become a tremendous long-term data set that we've been using on a national level, many different agencies to track population trends and location trends of birds. It's also become a data source to indicate that climate change is happening. We can see that birds are staying up north longer than they did decades ago. And we've also seen declines in population of once common birds.
Birding is not a very expensive hobby. To get started, all you need is a field guide and a pair of binoculars. It helps if you live in an area with a plethora of feathery creatures, like Florida.
It's very easy, and it's one of the hobbies I like is you don't need a lot of money for it. And I think there's a misconception that it's just for old people, and it's for anybody of any age and skill set. But I know for a fact it gets very habit forming, and once you start seeing birds, then you're going to want to see more birds, and then you start planning different trips, and then it grows and the excitement grows, and it's a lot of fun.
Planting indigenous plants and trees in your yard or neighborhood will increase the chances of seeing birds. And while birding can be an inexpensive hobby if you're birding in your backyard, a lot of money is spent by birders who come from all around the world to South Florida's national parks, bolstering the local economy.
I think Florida actually underestimates how much birding brings to the economy. People travel from all over the country, especially the Northeast and even foreign countries, to come and see the Everglades and Biscayne and dry tortugas just for the birds. And I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head what that means, but it's a good 15% of the tourism economy. And those are big numbers.
According to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, in 2011, wildlife viewing activities generated more than $4.9 billion for Florida's economy. And as new birding programs are established importing ecotourists into Florida, ELSA hopes to export the idea of a birding trail to other national parks. The checklist and certification programs that challenge visitors to take a closer look and listen for the birds they seek brings these visitors closer to the natural world and enhance the wildlife experience. Who doesn't like a scavenger hunt?
I just can't wait until every single national park in the country has their own birding trail. I think it would be very exciting if people had certificates from Yellowstone and from and from Yosemite, and from, gosh, all of them would be wonderful. Acadia National Park, that'd be cool.
If you're interested in learning more about the Biscayne Birding Trail, visit the Biscayne National Park website, or come for a visit and make sure you bring your binoculars.